The clock's ticking for the Giants to turn their season around at 2-5. They need to string some wins together, but first let's focus on that first win, everybody. They go to Pittsburgh on Monday night to take on a 5-2 Steelers team that's been, let's be honest, one of the best in the league through 7 weeks. What's up, guys? I'm Brandon London, and this is the Blue Rush Preview Show, and you guys know our co-host. He's Paul Schwartz. He's been covering the Giants on the beat for a long time, so you know Paul knows all about the history of Steelers-Giants. For Know Your Enemy, we have Christopher Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast, and we're back with some next-gen stats. But first, there he goes. I like the wipe, and then I like to see Paul right there. Paul, what's going on, man? How you feeling today?
We're both in Steelers black a little bit, right? I think we're in a little coordination. We need a little gold, right? We need a little gold in there. But yes, it's a look. This is Giants, Steelers. Yeah. It's old school football. We need to be dressed appropriately in, in sedate black colors, right, for Monday night. Hopefully it's not a black Monday night for the Giants, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, at least we didn't start the show with Wiz Khalifa's Black and Yellow, because I remember my time when I was out trying to make the team with the Steelers. That was the hottest song in the country at the time, and it was like they're going into a place where football is everything. And when we're talking about Giants Steelers, it's like I'm kind of conflicted because it's like, it's a primetime game, but the Giants are going on the road. So I don't know how to feel with this one. So we're going to break this thing down. But first, let's start with the injury report, Paul. Who's in, who's out?
Yeah, Giants are in pretty good shape. I mean, Brian Burns, who was not practicing, last week much at all, was limited in practice, on Thursday. That's good. That means because usually he's been not practicing. He said he's feeling a little better. Other than that, I think Cordell Flott with the groin injury is probably not going to be ready this week. Adoree Jackson with a neck injury, I think will likely not be ready, but I don't know. A little too soon for that. Dexter Lawrence with the hip didn't practice, but he's fine. Look, he's whatever he's got in those in his that big body of his works well. Whether it's hip or anything, because he's still dominating. And Jalen Hyatt, who cracked a rib last week playing like 3 snaps or something, he practiced fully, so he'll be fine. So Giants are in pretty good shape.
All right, first storyline, or the biggest storyline going into this game that you want to talk about to kick off this preview show is what?
Well, it has nothing technically about the game, but look, when John Mara speaks and says some things like he did this week, it's very important for the Giants. We talked about history and continuity. You got the Steelers over there. They've had 3 coaches since 1976, I think it is. I mean, that's a long time, right? That's a Mike Tomlin is in his 18th year. That's a long time. And, people in Pittsburgh kind of are getting a little ornery with him. You know what I mean? He hasn't been in the playoffs since 2016, Tomlin, right? But he's there. That's continuity. So are the Giants going to have that continuity? Well, we'll see. But we know lately, ever since Tom Coughlin was, let go after 12 years, it's been, Bing, McAdoo and Shermer and Judge, and now it's Dable, and what's going on? They're having a bad year. So John Mara was at the screening on Wednesday night at the Paley Center for Media in the city for the screening of the documentary about his father, Wellington Mara. It's terrific. I urge Giant fans to watch it. If you don't know a lot about him, even if you do, there's some unbelievable footage. I mean, it's basically a history of the NFL, and Wellington Mara is like Forrest Gump. He's everywhere. He shows up in all the history. You know what I mean? I mean, they literally, think of this for a second before I digress a little bit here. He used to take, right now, right, everyone, the Polaroids, the pictures, right? Everyone's got to look at pictures and pictures. He actually took Polaroids. He was the first one to take pictures. They were called Polaroids, black and white camera, and then they would develop them like right away, and he would put them in a sock and throw them down to the field, so somebody would then get them and they would show players on the field of Polaroids. I mean, we've come a long way from that with these I mean, it's unbelievable.
And all, yeah.
Tablets, it's unbelievable because they wanted to see the pictures. But so, John Mara was obviously there at this thing, and he knew he'd be asked questions from media who were there about this Giants team. And he said, look, I'm not here to talk about that. But John never backs from that. He never says, I'm not talking about it. He knows what the deal is. So he said, We aren't making any, talking about Joe Shane and about Brian Daboll, the GM and the head coach. We aren't making any changes this season, and I do not anticipate making any changes in the offseason either. Okay? He had said in 2017 during the season that he was not making any changes with Ben McAdoo that year, and after with 4 games to go that season, he fired Ben McAdoo and the GM Jerry Reese. So the word anticipate is important here for 2025. I thought it was a strong statement. He was asked, what do you, maybe you take something from your father about this? And he said, yes, try to be more patient than I've been. Yeah. He preached that all the time. So I think it's important. I know some Giants fans liked hearing that. Some did not. Some are saying we're 2-5. We're going nowhere. Why is he giving these guys a vote of confidence? I can see that point of view, but you can't fire guys all the time. You have to look at them. John was asked, why are you confident in these guys? They've had a losing record last year and a losing record this year. And he said, just the process they have where they see us going forward, their evaluation of our personnel, I still have confidence in both of them. Now, John also said it's very difficult because the last 10 or 12 years have been difficult, but you have to do the right thing, and we're committed to doing that and seeing this process through. So this process will continue through this year, and unless things go completely off the rails, into next year as well.
All right, so the head coach and the GM have an anticipated stay of confidence from the owner. So that leads us to the trickle-down effect. Who's the next most important person after that? Quarterback. Going into this game, it's 2 different quarterbacks that have gone through 2 different journeys and had 2 different successes when it comes to this head-to-head matchup. Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones. We all know about the exploratory meeting that the Giants had with Russell Wilson. He was in the building, ended up signing with the Steelers. Daniel Jones hasn't been great this season. You talked about his home and his road splits, what we're going to talk about. At this point right now, quarterback-wise, I guess it's easy. Who has the juice? Who has the juice quarterback-wise coming into this game, Paul?
Well, Russell Wilson was biding his time on the bench, right? You look at the Steelers, right? They were 4-2. Justin Fields is completely healthy, playing okay, right? Playing okay, not making a lot of mistakes, not making a lot of big plays down the field. What's the quarterback? The first mandate for quarterback, win the game. They were 4-2. Maybe not because of him, but they certainly weren't, in trouble because of him either. And they say, Mike Tomlin says we're making a change, and he puts Russell Wilson in. Now, Russell Wilson is not, as the saying goes, chopped liver, right? He's a future Hall of Famer. He came in and played quite well. They not well early against the Jets last week, but well late, throws touchdown passes. They look better, throws the ball down the field. They're going to stick with Russell Wilson. When the Giants talked to Russell Wilson, they were looking for a backup quarterback behind Daniel Jones. That wasn't going to fly with Russell Wilson. He goes to the Steelers for the veteran minimum of $1.2 million, and at the time he had Kenny Pickett on the roster. Doesn't take a genius to realize he is going to beat out Kenny Pickett here. Then they get rid of Kenny Pickett because he wants to be traded, and they pick up Fields, and that's a little more dicey. Fields gets to start, right? Daniel Jones, I do not understand this, and I asked Daniel Jones about it, and he said, I do not have a theory for this. He told me, I've always enjoyed playing on the road. Brandon, tell me if you can analyze these numbers, if they make any sense, okay? At home this year, Giants with Daniel Jones are 0-4. He's completing 60% of his passes, no touchdown passes, 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 15 times. His quarterback rating at home this year is 63.2. On the road, the Giants are 2-1 this season. Daniel's 2-1 this season on the road. He's completing almost 66% of his passes, 6 touchdown passes, no interceptions. His quarterback rating is 106.7. So 106.7 on the road, 63.2 at home. That means at home, he is a bad quarterback. At home, he is quite good. How does that make sense?
It makes zero sense to me. But at the New York Liberty Parade yesterday, I saw someone wearing a shirt to where it said, New York ain't for everybody. And that could be it for Daniel Jones. If you look at those numbers, on the road, it's like he's comfortable being going in as the villain instead of going in as a superhero when it comes to going into MetLife Stadium and winning some games. There are some players, Paul, that love it, that have the Draymond Green type approach to when it comes to being a villain on the road. But those are two different personalities when it comes to being that guy, being that villain. I don't see it. I don't understand why the numbers could be like that, because one of those wins that you're talking about on the 2-1 road win, on 2-1 on the road, he didn't have Malik Nabers in that game. So it's like, what is going? Is it the arm? Is it the knee? Is it the leg? Or is it in the head? What is going on with Daniel Jones on the road as opposed to at home? Now, Paul, if he goes out and plays another good game on the road and let's say beats the 5-2 Steelers on the road, what are you writing the very next morning, Tuesday morning? What's the media going to say about Daniel Jones going on the road again and winning a big game?
I just thought of this. You know what I'm going to write? The Giants need to wear their road whites at home from now on.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Look, they're averaging 22.7 points a game on the road. Not great, but, you know, they'd have more wins.
Yeah.
7.8 points a game at home. Okay, so, look, we know the deal at home. Sometimes it's harder for players to play at home when their things aren't going well. But as you said, you get booted on the road, you expect it. Silent counts, things like that. Getting booed at home is more difficult. Now, there's matchups and there's issues. We know, who they played at home. First game of the season, we didn't know the Vikings are going to have such a good defense. They played them at home. They got their clocks cleaned. The Eagles this week were not, this past week were not a great defensive performance-wise team this year, but they cleaned the Giants' clocks. We get it. Daniel was benched, with 11 and a half minutes to go in a game. He's coming back this week, obviously. Look, it's just something they're going to have to get through. They have to get through this season. Brian Dable, we talked about it in the last, podcast episode. He's not looking to bench Daniel Jones with 11 and a half minutes to go last week. It's like we have 100 total yards. Well, what's the point? We're losing 28-3. It can't get worse. I'll just throw Drew Lock in there. Maybe he'll run around a little bit and make a few plays, and we'll throw a touchdown pass and we can pretend that we're gonna compete in this game. But he immediately said Daniel's the quarterback. Daniel's after this year, Daniel will have been paid about $105 million from the Giants, okay? So, he got his money. They always haven't had a great offensive line around him, great running game, even with Saquon, great targets. We get all that. As John Maris said, we've done more to screw this guy up than we care to think about here. We get it all, but Daniel's been well compensated. He needs to play better. He knows that to a point. I don't know. I think Daniel thinks that he needs to play better, but a lot of people around him need to play better too, which is true. He just doesn't say it. I think some of his body language and things might suggest that. He knows if he says that, that's going to be trouble. If he wins, look, if they beat the Steelers this week Monday night, then everyone gets a reprieve for a week.
If they beat the Steelers this week, Daniel Jones look good is because he got Malik Nabers, the Rock. It's something that he wasn't able to really do on a consistent basis against the Eagles. And obviously there's that viral clip of Malik Nabers post-game. You were there when he said, check the target tape. I'm open. For those of you who don't know what target tapes is, these plays can be broken down to Daniel Jones scrambling right, throwing the ball plus 15 yards. You can break these things down into when it comes to the DVR, whatever it is that they use. Check the target tape. Malik Nabers is saying he's open. What that means is that I feel as though Brian Dable, and even Brian Dable said that he was open. We missed him. I think Malik Nabers, I think we're back to an 18-target type game to get this guy the ball, to get this offense moving. It's clear to see that the offense runs through this guy, and I think that we're going to see a game where they are going to have an emphasis on getting him the ball often and early. And, Paul, I know back then I was like, oh, no, we need to spread the ball around. The Giants offense needs to spread the ball. There's just too many drops. It's too many drops. There's too many question marks going on at the other wide receiver positions right now outside of Malik Nabers. So if Daniel Jones is going to go on the road, Brian Dable is going to be like, you know what, let's go out there and let's beat this team. I feel as though Malik Nabers is going to touch the rock at least 10 times this game, Paul.
Well, first of all, before I get to his 18 or 10 targets, how many times did you look through your target tape, right, and say you were open?
Not
A
much.
lot, right?
Not that, yeah.
Not much?
I mean,
Yeah.
not, in the NFL, no, but in the CFL, yes, because I was a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 in the CFL. I was a special teams guy that got, but I would go watch my reps, watch my routes. But when you're a wide receiver 1, when you're the 6th pick of the draft, when you're someone who they unretired a jersey for, then you're going to go back and you're going to watch that because there's a lot of pressure on you. And as a wide receiver, I tip my hat to him with what he said. I know a lot of people were a little bit upset about that. He didn't necessarily throw his quarterback under the bus because when you're running down the field 30, 40 yards or you run some sort of 15-yard dig and you look back and you don't get the ball, you see quarterback, maybe he could have ran out of there, out of the pocket. You don't know if it was the offensive line that could have broke down, or you don't know if the quarterback missed him. So instead of him just coming out and being like one of those, Stephon Diggs type to where I want the ball, let me go at Josh Allen's head. You know what? Never saw him walk up to Daniel Jones on the sideline, throw a tantrum on the sideline. He's just saying, look, I'm open. Get me the rock. The kid wants to be a competitor. So when he says that, and you got the head coach kind of agreeing with you, Malik Nabers is going to eat this week, I feel like. But is it going to be enough for this Giants offense?
We asked Daniel about that. Yeah, we asked Daniel about that, and he said, I think it's good a receiver thinks he's open for sure. Okay, that's fine. Then Daniel said, I watched the tape, and he said maybe 1 or 2 opportunities to get him the ball and see where I can do that. So, that was his way of saying, look, I didn't miss him 10 times here. You know what I mean? Maybe there were 1 or 2 opportunities. Don't forget, Daniel was sacked 7 times, okay? On some of them, could have gotten the ball out of his hand quicker. And Malik, actually, after he said I was open, did mention that there were some circumstances that, reasons that he wouldn't get the ball. Now, as far as you saying all these targets, if you target him 13, 14 times, right, and you'll become predictable, Minkah Fitzpatrick and Bobby Porter Jr. are going to get interceptions, okay? They are going to. So I understand he he should have the most targets. He's the best player, but you still have to be careful third down, he's looking for Malik. Third down, he's looking for Malik. Yeah. We already see what happens on third down when he looks for Wan'Dale Robinson, right? Yep. It's a 6 or 7 yard completion if Wan'Dale catches it. And if he does catch it, he's going to get hit in the back because the guy's sitting right there, at the stick. So, as I watch these games during the weekend, I see tight end screens. I see tight ends, starting on one side and coming across and then getting open. The Giants have to do more of that. They just have to, because and Malik has to be a decoy. He has to get the ball, but Daniel Jones is just not at this. He's just not the kind of quarterback who can just play pitch and catch with a guy and you can't stop it. I just don't think that's going to happen with him. So, they have to target him. He's a 6th pick in the draft, but this is Brian Daboll's offense. He's running the plays. He's scheming the plays. And he's trying to be as creative as he can. There are limitations at the quarterback position. This is going to be really hard. The Steelers are really good. The Steelers have improved their linebackers. They've improved the back end. Their front guys are getting healthier. Highsmith, things like that. TJ Watt is TJ Watt. His sacks are down, but you take a breath on him for a minute, his sacks are going right back up. He's going right back up. His sacks aren't down because of a lack of anything other than the quarterback's probably thrown the ball in 1 second, and TJ Watt's got 2.5 guys blocking him. So that's Jermaine Illuminor, going to be a lot. He lines up across the right tackle almost every play. Every once in a while, he'll float inside in the run game. If you're having a problem in the run game, he's basically, Mr. Fix-It. He wants to stay on that left side and attack your right tackle. Oh, we're having a problem in the run game. Okay, float him inside. He'll blow up the run game. You know what I mean? So Jermaine Illuminor's got to eat his Wheaties and, eat his protein bars. And, he said, I'm up for it. I played against him before. He's played in Pittsburgh. Give him help. And, hopefully Watt doesn't give him hell.
Well, we're going to get into that TJ Watt discussion right there. But Malik Nabers has to know that going into this game. He has to understand that every single defense is going to try and take him out of the game and make Wandale, Jalen Hyatt, or Darius Slayton, or the run game beat them. He has to understand that the Giants, Brian Dable, going up against a TJ Watt, they're going to keep a tight end in. They're going to chip. They're going to have to keep guys in to get you open down the field. And that's if they don't play cloud coverage or roll the coverage over top of you, Malik Nabers. But when we talk about TJ Watt coming off this edge, he cannot, I know it's hard to say, he cannot affect the game like TJ Watt is known to do. This is on the Giants' offensive line to get Daniel Jones confident, keep him clean as possible, and keep him as confident as possible. Because if you don't, and the TJ Watt is all in his face, you got Highsmith all in his face, the other guy, Nick the other guy all in his face. We're going to see that same Giants offense that we've seen, Paul, maybe get 6 points off of 2 field goals and struggle to score. But Jermaine Illuminor, whoever it is that has TJ Watt in this pass rush, this is one of the top pass rushes in the league, and it scares me going into this game, Paul.
You know, you try to make a case, right? You try to litigate the case for the Giants. So, the best way to do that is to run the ball. How are they going to run the ball? The Steelers are the second best run defense in the league. They allow 81 yards a game. You know what I mean? So you say, well, you got to run the ball. Last week against the Eagles, they came out throwing. They came out throwing. And was that a smart strategy? I understand. Nabers was back. The Eagles have some vulnerability in the back end. Way to come out throwing, loosen them up. This is not old-fashioned 70s college football. We're going to come out running the ball. I get it, but if the Giants don't run the ball, they won't win. The Giants are not going to throw for 300 yards and beat anybody. They're just not going to. I don't care, how many whiteouts are there. So they have to run the ball. I'm not saying you have to run on first down, second down, third down. I get it. I get it. But that's going to be a problem. Watt, he has that propensity to get, to jump up, to bat down a pass, to intercept a pass. And it's interesting. Brian Burns said about him, he said, he has this one move that people just seems they can't figure out. And even Dexter Lawrence said it. He kind of does the same thing. The Steelers don't do a lot on defense. They don't do a lot. They played the same defense for many, many years. They don't take a lot of gambles. Watt does not have this array of pass rush moves. But look, he's got 100 career sacks, 101, I think, in 111 games or whatever. He's averaging about a sack a game. He tied Michael Strahan a few years ago with 22 and a half sacks for the most in a single season. So we don't need the Blue Rush podcast to talk about how great he is. We don't. He's great. You know what I mean? We don't have to do a segment on, was Lawrence Taylor a great linebacker? We know these things. Yeah. He's Lawrence Taylor, obviously. So it's a matter of Jermaine Illuminor said on Thursday, we know that he said, I think he used the word embarrassed by the way the offensive line played against the Eagles. We know that's not up to our standard. And he's a very confident guy. He says, watch us this week. We will play better. We will play up to our standard. Who's going to be the left tackle? Is it going to be Josh Azudu? Is it going to be newly acquired Chris Hubbard, who's had, 100 games in the NFL? We'll see. Whoever it is, they have to be better because, there's a lot of blame to go around last week, and it might have started with Daniel Jones, but, it was like a horse race, right? Coming hard on the edge there, coming hard on the inside to make a photo finish here was the offensive line. They were bad.
Yeah, and Paul, we can talk about TJ Watt, but on the flip side, the Yellow Rush preview show is talking about the Giants pass rusher, because here for Next Gen Stats, the Giants are one of 2 teams to have 3 different edge defenders with 15 or more total pressures. Brian Burns, Kayvon, who's out, and Azeez Ojulari. And not to mention Dexter Lawrence, who I feel as though could be up for Defensive Player of the Year if he continues to have the year that he's having, leading the league in sacks as an interior defensive lineman. So we already know the steel curtain and what they're going to bring with the guys coming off the edge. But the Giants can also get after Russell Wilson, who Russ only played one good half of football against the Jets. The first half, people wanted nothing to do with him. They wanted Justin Fields to come back into the game. So it's like, because of the pressure and what Shane Bowen has been able to do, dialing up pressure, we thought he was just going to rush forward and kind of hang back. He's blitzed a lot more than what we thought he was going to. You can get at Russell Wilson and make Russell Wilson be the Russell Wilson of the Broncos days and not the Seattle Seahawks days. So, but one thing I want to talk about, Paul, Monday Night Football for the Giants, they've had a couple guys called out for their effort. You can maybe get away with it in a loss, a blowout loss against the Eagles on Sunday, 1 p.m. game. But on a primetime football game, the world is watching. So you can't have guys not running to the football, guys not like, you can't be called out by your secondary coach. The Giants have to have all hands on deck, and everybody has to have their best effort on Monday night. What are your thoughts on some of the things that has gotten out there, on some of the effort from some of the players?
Did you see, I don't know if you saw it yet, it just came out, they had Saquon mic'd up for the game. And, he and Micah McFadden and he and Tyler Newman, it was all good stuff, what I mean? And obviously those collisions, and you hear the impacts and everything. And at one point, he kind of, like at the line of scrimmage on one play, he kind of like gave a little dap or a little hug to Deonte Banks. Yep. You know what I mean? And he said to him, look, if I break one, don't you be chasing me down. Don't you be chasing me down if I break one. And when Saquon broke that 55-yard around the left end, Deonte Banks chased him down, right? Yep. He did it. Now, that's a good hustle play. Now, Deonte Banks this season already has had 2 marks against him, right? You get 3 strikes, right? He's got 2. He had a very, very bad look against CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys, right? Just didn't make an effort to tackle him, really, basically, right? And then this past week, there's a missed sack by Adams, right? There's a missed sack, and Jalen Hurts get out of it. It's funny. I'll digress again. I talked to Adams about it. He's mostly a special teamer. The Eagles were 1 for 13 on third down. If he gets that sack like he should, they're 0 for 14 on third down. They do not convert 1 third down, okay? He gets out of it, and he runs 16 yards around the right side, and he looks like he's probably going to run out of bounds maybe, and Deonte Banks just kind of stands there and kind of like, you want the sideline? Go right ahead. And he just cuts it up for about, what, I would say 5 or 6 more yards, I would guess.
5 or 6, yep.
Yeah, before he runs out of bounds. And you see, which is I'm drawing a blank on Jerome Henderson, the defensive backs coach, Jerome Henderson, who's great, like going crazy, like having a fit over there. Like, what the hell are you doing? Brian Daboll does not undress people, verbally. He just doesn't do it. It's going to be addressed. It's going to be addressed. Could he do it? Sure, he could. Just send the message. If Brian Daboll says, well, I don't think it's wrong for Brian Daboll to say, I didn't like the effort after watching the film. Okay, after seeing it, the next day say, I didn't like the effort there, and we can't have that. And he knows it. He can say that. He prefers it's in house. Okay. Well, Dexter Lawrence the other day said it's been addressed. Someone asked him another question. He said it's been addressed, and he said you can make a mistake. You can't make a mistake like that twice. Yep. That's true for Deonte Banks. And, he's been a pretty good player, but he's a first-round draft pick. He has to be a better player. He has to be a better hustler. And this is I don't know if I want to call it inflection point, but yeah, Deonte Banks cannot have that kind of stuff show up on film anymore. That's all there is to it. He's been called out by his teammates now. Yeah,
it's one thing when your position coach says something. It's another thing when your head coach says something. But when the players, the guys on the defense that's busting their tails, running to the football, trying to make things happen because the offense is kind of been stagnant, it's when a Dexter Lawrence or a Bobby Okereke sees it, that's when the problems start. So it's going to be interesting because, remember, Deonte Banks was drafted in the same round as Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr., the Steelers starting cornerback. Then that payday comes up, people are going to be weighing not only the numbers, the stats, but the effort, the things you do when the ball's not coming your way. That's something that guys, again, I'm old school. Giant is, I guess, somewhat old school. That's the things that the Plaxes, the Antonio Pierces, those guys, you never wanted them to call you out on that. Because
Did you ever see that? Did you see that?
No, not that year, Paul. Not 2007.
You didn't see them have to call out somebody for something? No? Okay.
For effort, absolutely not. Was there, if could it have been like, remember rookie Steve Smith, his rookie year, kind of came in a little Hollywood per se, but not anything over the top. They may have called him out because he didn't sing or do the rookie sing thing, and they came into our room, dumped flour and water all over our stuff during training camp. There are little things like that, but we knew in that meeting room with Plax and Toom and Mike Sullivan is our receivers coach, the last thing you wanted to be called out on, especially from Plax, is effort, and especially in the run game. So it's kind of vice versa as a DB, run in and make a tackle. If you got called out by Plax by not blocking, that was a no-go back then. That was an absolutely no-go, but that's just part of the culture. And I see this team with its leaders, they're trying to find the guys who are like, you know what, we got our backs to the wall, guys. Who's going to fight with us? Who's going to fight with this? And the fact that Dexter Lawrence has kind of said it's going to be addressed. Best
no, he
believe
said it's been addressed. It's been addressed.
They've talked about it. They had a conversation. There was a conversation. All right, Paul. Let's wrap this thing up in terms of this block, and let's take the people to the Steel City so they can get to know the Steelers in this week's Know Your Enemy with Christopher Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Representing the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and the Locked On Steelers podcast, we got Chris Carter in the building, or Christopher Carter. Which one? Do I call you by the government, or do we go by Chris? Huh? We all friends here.
Hey, all I do is catch touchdowns, guys.
All right, let's kick this thing off, Paul. We've got Giants Steelers, Monday Night Football, Russell Wilson versus Daniel Jones. Kick this thing off, Paul.
Hey, Chris, thanks for coming on. I've been covering the Giants for a long time, and they hadn't been 4-2 in a long time, okay? And I can be darn sure that if they were 4-2, they would not have made a quarterback change, okay? So, I guess when you're in your 18th year, you can kind of do whatever you want, right? So just take me through that. I guess you guys probably weren't shocked by it, but is there a different vibe now? Justin Fields 4-2. He's not the perfect quarterback, but they're 4-2. He's a winning quarterback, and then they go to Russ Wilson. So is there a different vibe? And is this like a good thing for the Steelers moving forward? Or are you not sure yet?
I think it is a good thing based off of what I saw. Listen, the Steelers, people have to remember, when the Steelers made their entire flip of a quarterback room this offseason, the first move they did was to go get Russell Wilson. That was a priority for them. And then it wasn't until Kenny Pickett was like, trade me, that they went and got Justin Fields after trading away Kenny Pickett. So Russell Wilson was always the plan to be QB1. But where I think people were like a little excited in Pittsburgh is after some rough years of quarterback play. Like you said, they're 4-2. Justin Fields has 10 touchdowns, 5 on the ground, 5 through the air, only 1 interception, 1 lost fumble. And people are like, why would you go away from that? But as I pointed out in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette with film studies, as good as Justin Fields was at possessing the football, at taking what was there, he was missing things that were downfield. There were open plays being drawn up by the Steelers offense with Arthur Smith that he was not seeing and taking advantage of. The Steelers called the 5th most play action passes in the NFL going into that game against the Jets, but Justin Fields was averaging around 5 yards per attempt. That was like ranked 32nd in the league. His also average depth of target was like for around 5 yards. Also 32nd or 33rd in the league. Russell Wilson comes in, and in 1 week, he hits play action so much that he averages 13.1 yards per attempt in 1 game. Of all quarterbacks that have thrown 10 passes going into this week, that's the highest in the NFL. And again, small sample size, it's the Jets. You can say whatever we want, but one thing Russell Wilson showed is he has a command of the offense. He understands how to get the ball out on time. He understands how to counter what defenses are doing faster and read the defense with what the Steelers offense is trying to do. That's what they're going to give him another chance to do this week. If Russell Wilson comes out and delivers another really strong performance, they put up another 30-point performance, I think the Steelers stick with him. He's the guy after the bye week, and that's the guy moving forward. And like you said, Mike Tomlin, when you've been a head coach in your 18th season, you never had a losing season, you're a Super Bowl champion, a 2-time AFC champion, you've won your division several times over, you get the space to make these decisions, and the Rooney's gave it to him, and at least through 1 game, it looked like the right call.
Well, like Coach Tomlin said, that's why I'm well compensated. Everything that you just mentioned, I love the way how he did that and kind of just had the mic drop and walked off. But to stay on Russell Wilson, That was only a small sample size we had of them this year. It's almost like he kind of redshirted for a little bit and let Justin Fields kind of go out there and pretty much hand him the job. You mentioned Justin Fields' numbers, good but not great. Russ kind of started off slow against the Jets in the first half. So on the flip side of that film study, are there still some holes in Russ's game that doesn't make him as dangerous as he used to be?
Oh, certainly. You know, Justin Fields does a great job using his legs to create plays, not just to buy time, but to get yards. And that's something Russell Wilson used to do. Now he can't do as much. Like there was a play or two where things weren't working out downfield, and Russ tried to take off, and the Jets are like, come here, you're not that fast. And they were able to bring him down. But there were also times that he used his legs just enough to buy time. He got rid of the ball. Like there was a play action pass where Pat Freiermuth breaks open. There's a defender right in his face blitzing. Russell Wilson just dips off to the side, sidearms it. It goes to Pat Freiermuth. He runs for 30 yards. He is very good at seeing those things. And early on, he wasn't. He was kind of feeling him out. But I think this is something that Mike Tomlin loves about Russell Wilson, was that during that, I was there at Acrisure Stadium, Sunday Night Football. Steelers fans are restless. They want to win. They haven't won a playoff game in 7 years. And in that first quarter, there were boos raining down upon Russell Wilson. There was chants of, "We want Justin." And I'm looking around like, this could get out of hand. And I've seen that with Mitch Trubisky, with Kenny Pickett, with Mason Rudolph the last 3 years or so. And man, Steelers fans, I'm seeing Steelers fans get pandemonium. Russell Wilson doesn't even blink. And that was something Mike Tomlin credited for him after the game. He said, that guy, we want him to be able to take that kind of pressure. He comes out, throws 2 touchdowns, sneaks in for another, gets over 400 yards of offense for the Steelers in total, and balances this Steelers offense. I think that's what the Steelers really want from Russell Wilson. Handle the big moments, manage the offense, make this not about you, make this about the team, because Najee Harris all of a sudden has back-to-back 100-yard rushing games. George Pickens just caught his first touchdown of the year. Van Jefferson just caught his first touchdown of the year. Pat Freiermuth is getting worked in. Darnell Washington, the second-year Georgia tight end, getting worked in. They don't want a superstar to take over this offense. They want to hurt you with 4 or 5 different elements of this offense so that you can't guess. You can't pin like back in the day, you had to say, hey, take away Antonio Brown. That's how you stop this offense. Take away Le'Veon Bell. That's how you stop this offense. Arthur Smith wants an offense where, okay, you want to take away Najee Harris and crowd the line of scrimmage? George Pickens is going to go off on you today. You want to try to take away the sidelines? Pat Freiermuth is going down the middle. And that's what Russell Wilson at least showed for about 3 quarters that he could do. Can he do it for more quarters, and can he be a consistent threat this season? That's what the Steelers have to find out.
Boos in the first half, Paul. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But the Giants didn't have a Russell Wilson coming out of the bullpen, right? They had a Drew Lock in the fourth quarter in garbage time. It's interesting. The Giants had Russell Wilson in for a visit, right before he signed with the Steelers. And look, the Giants and Steelers are, the Rooneys and the Maras, they're similar, right? They're longstanding franchises. They both, the Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger eras, coincided for, pretty much, 18, 19 years. Ben lasted a little longer. Both teams are having tremendous trouble afterwards, moving on from Ben and Eli, finding that next guy, and the Steelers had first-round picks that failed. The Steelers have been more aggressive. Certainly, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. The Giants basically just, drafted Daniel Jones, and that's coming to an end, I think. But they've been, maybe more stubborn, less forward thinking in doing this, because when Russell Wilson came here to visit, the job was to be a backup. You know what I mean? The job was to be a backup, and it wasn't like you're going to beat out Daniel Jones. The Steelers was right, as you correctly mentioned. Kenny Pickett was there. Everyone knows if Russell Wilson comes in and there's a competition, he's beating out Kenny Pickett. He's the quarterback. So kudos to the Steelers for doing that. At the time, I wasn't like, oh, the Giants have to sign Russell Wilson, because I knew they were going to. They just paid Daniel Jones, who is 45 million bucks. They're not putting him on the bench. That would be crazy. Russell Wilson's making what, veteran minimum? It would make no sense. Yep. So but I just want to go, to get off Russell a little bit and go, myth versus reality, right? It's funny. A lot of the Giants players have never even played in Pittsburgh, say, oh, it's a great atmosphere, the towels, this is what football's all about. Great. If I would have told you, Chris, 2 months ago, before the season started, going into the Monday night game, the Giants would have twice as many sacks on defense as the Steelers, you would have said what to me?
I would have said, you drunk, go home, because the Steelers got TJ Watt. That's insane. But hey, man, Mike Tomlin professed this. I've seen him in college. I've seen him in the pros. Dexter Lawrence is a monster, and he is so huge in what he's able to do with that defensive front. And I think that's the matchup. If the Giants are going to win this game, you have Dexter Lawrence in the middle of this defense. Put him over Ryan McCollum and Mason McCormick every single chance you get, every third down, every big down. You need him disrupting this, because Ryan McCollum, Steelers backup center, really their third string center. Their backup was supposed to be Nate Herbig. He's out for the year. And now Zach Frazier, their second round pick, who's playing very well, he's out for this game. That's where you got to put it on Ryan McCollum, a guy who's making his third NFL start at center. And right next to him on his right is Mason McCormick, a fourth-round rookie pick who's played well, but who's filling in there for James Daniels, who's also out for the year. You got to make this about the Steelers' offensive line that has a lot of inexperience, is learning on the fly, and is growing through their mistakes. And if you're the Giants, you want to make this about growing through their mistakes against you. So hopefully you get Lawrence healthy, you get Burns healthy, and the two of them are able to fire off. If you're the Giants, that's what I'm leaning on the most there, is Dexter Lawrence and that pass rush.
And you can even go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Why do the Steelers only have 15 sacks? You know what I mean? I mean, is that, we know J.J. Watt is a freak. We know all this, but the numbers are not crazy. So is this like more myth than reality? I mean, T.J. Watt's not a myth. We know that. T.J. Watt's not a myth. But is this pass rush, more reputation, or do you see things that I don't see?
I think part of it is offenses have been very good about doubling and tripling TJ Watt this year, and they've been missing their number 2 edge rusher, Alex Highsmith, for most of the season. He just got back last week, and teams are prioritizing. Get the ball out fast. Don't care if it's incomplete. Just do not let TJ Watt wreck this game. And part of that is they're doing everything to take him away. But now Alex Highsmith's back. Nick Herbig, who was the first edge rusher to come off the bench, he's been out for a few games now. So the rotation that they've been able to use around TJ Watt to make it so that you can't just focus on taking him away hasn't been available for most of this season. I think that's been the biggest factor. But another factor I think also that plays into this is the Steelers' defense behind them has been so much better this season. They haven't had to rely upon them. Guys like Patrick Queen, guys like Peyton Wilson, the rookie out of NC State, guys like Landon Roberts, they're playing really good off-ball linebacker work. Guys like Deshaun Elliott at the safety position, playing very strong. Joey Porter Jr., a very quiet, very solid year. And because of that, I don't think the Steelers have needed to lean on TJ Watt like they have in the year that he's led the NFL in sacks 3 out of the last 5 years, in what he's been able to do. I think that's the reason there. It's not a myth. It's more so, hey, teams are being smarter about how they approach TJ Watt. There's been some injuries that slowed things down on the defensive front, but make no mistake, if you come out in a game and you think you can just win with one-on-one on TJ Watt, good luck. He'll eat your lunch alive. And if you have a quarterback that's holding on to the ball too long, it's going to be a long day for them if they're not seeing some guys get open really quickly.
Yeah, and the Giants' offense, I believe, leads the NFL in terms of keeping a tight end in to kind of block and to help out on the offensive line. It has to be a factor, especially with the edge rushers that you just named. But let's talk about that back end, man. You talk about Joey Porter Jr. You didn't even mention Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've got that steel curtain in that back end when it comes to their secondary. Obviously, after a game where Malik Nabers doesn't touch the ball as much as fans want and he wants, and most importantly, Brian Dable wants, he's going to get targeted. Can we expect Joey Porter Jr. to travel wherever Malik Nabers goes? Is that going to be the matchup to keep an eye out on?
It will be a big matchup. I don't think he'll follow him all night long, but they will make a point to match them up a lot in this game. The Steelers came into this year admittedly like, hey, they wanted to challenge Joey Porter Jr. before they let him travel with receivers. But I think the past 3 weeks especially, you see him go up against guys like Devontae Adams and just take him out of the game. That was big last week. They've seen him go up against number 1 receivers a lot and learn from them. He's learning how to press receivers. He loves to be physical. He loves to run man coverage, press you at the line, and he's getting better at not holding, because that was the big thing that was a mark against him coming out of Penn State. Now he's getting better at that. But you brought up Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah Fitzpatrick has been quietly so good for the Steelers that teams just don't want to throw near him, and if they do, they're checking it down well underneath him, and he's coming up. But so many times, like last week, Beanie Bishop, slot cornerback, undrafted guy out of West Virginia, had 2 interceptions. A big part of that was because they were moving Minkah Fitzpatrick around, and Aaron Rodgers was like, okay, I'm going anywhere that 39 isn't. so he tried to pick on a rookie, and he threw one pass that was a poor throw that Beanie Bishop anticipated. He threw another pass that was affected by Beanie Bishop, bounced off of Garrett Wilson, and Bishop intercepted. People are more willing to throw that to other guys in the Steelers secondary than Minkah Fitzpatrick, who still hasn't had an interception this year or even last year. He was hurt a lot of last season, but teams are avoiding him. I think that this will come down to if the Steelers can force teams to be desperate like the Jets were at the end of the last game, maybe he gets more opportunities. But it is certainly a game plan. If you're facing the Steelers, there are two guys in particular you want to limit. TJ Watt is the edge rusher, Minkah Fitzpatrick is the guy in the secondary. You take those two away, maybe you got a chance. But the Steelers are showing this year that blueprint is not so easy to beat them with, because now Patrick Queen's playing solid at linebacker, Peyton Wilson, Landon Roberts up there, Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson when he's been healthy, Deshaun Elliott when he's been healthy. They have answers so many different lines. And by the way, there's still TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward that they're bringing at you. That's why they're the number 2 defense in the NFL right now, scoring, number 2 against the run, and they're going to make it tough for the Giants to beat them by just going to one guy like Malik Nabers. You're going to need a balanced attack, good decisions from Daniel Jones, good protection from this Giants front to make this an attack. I think the key for the Giants offense, you got to hit your chunk plays. If you expect to just dink and dunk your way down the field all night long, the Steelers are going to eventually catch you on one of those, make it turn into a big turnover play. They had 3 turnovers in back-to-back games at one point this season, 2 turnovers last week. So I think they've now had a streak of multiple turnovers for 3 games in a row at least. You can't let that happen. The big way to do that, hit your chunk plays, take those chances, and hit them when you get them.
2 things, Paul, before you go. 2 things. I'm really upset that you just mentioned Minkah not having an interception this year. That's like you saying Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. It better not happen this week, Chris, or I'm driving out west on I-80, and I got to come see you about that one, man. 2, talking about the Giants and the chunk plays, it's just not something that their offense is just not something that they've been able to do. In their wins they have, but in their losses, not getting Malik Nabers the ball, not hitting those chunk plays have been 2 things that plagued them. Sorry for jumping in, Paul. Go ahead, keep on with the questions.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I don't want to interfere with your threatening to drive west and attack our guest, who is not being very well compensated for this. But if that's the way you want to roll here, that's fine.
I love Meek. I love Meek. I used to train him in high school at ETS. And Chris, you can ask him about that. But please, not this week, Mika. Not this week. Go ahead, Paul.
Look. We don't need your expertise to tell me, how are the Steelers going to win this game, right? It's easy. You just listed to me, it looks like what you're saying is they were kind of a quarterback away. They were a dynamic quarterback away. I mean, the defense is better, maybe not as spectacular, but better. The offensive line, maybe he's got, some things they got to deal with. They have a good running game. They have the system. They needed a quarterback who's going to throw the ball down the field. And now they're going to have that. We'll see after one game. We'll see the sample size, right? But let me know, this is a Giants podcast, okay? So like I said, we can sit here for 4 hours and explain why the Steelers are going to win. Give me a couple of bullet points for Giants fans that look, if there's going to be an upset Monday night, here's how it's going to come down.
Okay, so first and foremost, I said a little earlier, Dexter Lawrence, that defensive front, get them, confuse this Steelers offensive line. Broderick Jones, first-round pick from last year, starting at right tackle. He's not been the best. He's struggled at times. He's been inconsistent. And I think that's where it's the one guy you can pray on. He's right next to rookie Mason McCormick at right guard, who's right next to Ryan McCollum, making his 3rd start in the NFL at center. You want to try and get those guys out of sync to kind of have pressure coming at Russell Wilson on his strong side and forcing him to have to throw the ball away. Russell Wilson's going to do a lot of throwaways if he's under pressure. That's what he's being coached to do. That's what he's doing really well. He's going to live for another day. You have to be able to do that on defense to disrupt things, and you do that and you play the run. Do not let Najee Harris get going. If he does, everyone else starts to eat, and then you have a good luck stop at the Steelers offense. That's exactly what Arthur Smith wants to get going. On the flip side, you look on offense. I talked about those chunk plays. The biggest problem the Steelers defense has had is when they've been caught in miscommunication errors where guys have been, it's different. They love to run zone coverages, and guys just misunderstand where they're supposed to go at certain times. A lot of it has been on Beanie Bishop, which is why the Jets went after him so much and paid for it and throwing 2 interceptions to the rookie. But they're getting sharper there. But if I'm the Giants, if I'm Brian Daboll, I'm looking at what Shane Steichen did with the Colts. I'm looking what the Cowboys did in their final drives, in their comeback win over the Steelers. And I'm saying, hey, look at these passes over the middle. Let's try to get these concepts where we're going to force this defender to make a tough decision decision. Do I take away this guy or I take away that guy? And that's also where I would put Malik Nabers. I would move him around. I don't know if I haven't looked at his alignment snaps this year, how much he's lining up on the outside versus the slot versus here versus there, but I'd be trying to get him in situations where either he's the playmaker or he's the decoy, and force the Steelers defense to choose. Hey, we're gonna give you your playmaker here, or we're gonna make you have to win with this other guy here. And if we do that, sometimes you might get those mistakes over the middle, and that's where Daniel Jones has to step up and earn his money. He has to read the defense when the Steelers make those defensive gaffes in the secondary and there's guys open. He has to hit them, and those are where your chunk plays coming. But that's going to be forced from really good passing concepts from Brian Dable. It's going to be forced from good reading of the defense and guys making plays when they're available. If they don't hit those chunk plays, guys, I think it's going to be a long day for the Giants. You know, Brandon, you talked about that being a factor in wins and losses. To me, that's the thing. So pressure Russell Wilson, control the line of scrimmage on defense, and catch the Steelers defense and miscommunication over the middle. Those are the two things. If you're leaning on, if the Giants do those two things, I like their chances Monday night.
You talked about moving Malik Nabers around. He's targeted on 60% of his routes when he's in motion, so that's going to be something to keep an eye out on as well. Chris, man, this was great, man. Tell the people they can find you. Giants fans, make sure you give them a follow, because this was, this is one of our top Know Your Enemies this season.
Thank you very much. Christopher Carter. You can follow me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all my places at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. I not only cover the Steelers, I also cover the Pitt Panthers, like guys like Jason Pinnock. If you're liking what he's doing there, Pitt produces some good talent. So check us out around NFL draft time for all our coverage of those guys. And you can also find me on the Locked On Steelers podcast every Monday through Friday, breaking down the Steelers on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube.
Thanks, Chris. All right, first and foremost, I got to thank Chris for that. Whatever coffee he had this morning, can I get some of that? Because my man brought the juice and the energy. Now it's time to get into the next gen stats. Let's get Paul up for me, please. All right, Paul, we got 3 this time because we've been talking a lot to break down from this game, but let's get into the nitty-gritty details. I got 3 for you. Let's fire through this. The Steelers have 3 edge rushers who have each generated 10 or more pressures. T.J. Watt, Nick Herbig, and Alex Smith. That's tied for second most in the league. The Giants have 3 of their own. Kayvon's out, but whose big 3 pass rushers are you taking in this matchup? Kayvon out, and we'll swap Dexter in on that.
Well, we got to put Dexter in. He's leading the league in sacks, so
yep.
You know he's not an edge rusher, but he's a rusher, all right. Look, I think any team with T.J. Watt gets an edge. You know, he's a Hall of Famer. You know, he will be in the Hall of Fame 5 years after he retires. Gets an edge. You know, Azeez Ojulari is doing a really good job. Yeah. Rushing the passer, really good job. He's showing that he can do that. We kind of knew he could do that as long as he stayed healthy, but I think his liabilities show up setting the edge. Kayvon is better at that against the run than Azeez. You know, Azeez maybe, you know, if he goes to another team after the season, it's more of a situational edge rusher because he's not great at that. So that, you know, when you say, oh, man, he's got more sacks than Kayvon is better in a run game, you know, and, you know, that's a problem. You know, that's a problem.
If Azeez can have a big game on Monday Night Football, a lot of people are going to be talking about him. And I can guarantee a lot of people are going to be kind of calling, asking what his availability is. But at the end of the day, a guy who's taken full advantage of his opportunity, we hope he can stay healthy for the entire year. In his Steelers debut, Week 7, Russell Wilson held the ball for over 2.5 seconds on 21 of his 29 pass attempts. He completed 11 for 205 yards. The Giants have generated the highest sack rate and 7th highest pressure rate on such pass attempts this season. Paul, Danger Russ can't be dangerous while he's holding on to the rock this week.
Yeah, Brian Burns said, you know, I asked him, is he hard to get to and bring down about Russell Wilson? And Brian Burns told me, I wouldn't say he's necessarily tough to take down. Okay. He said, he's hard to find at times. You know what I mean? Because he makes himself small, right? He does make himself small. You know, he's a thick guy, but he's short. He makes himself small. And he did say, Brian Burns, that sometimes he gets a little deep in the pocket, and that's where you can find him. Some of Russell Wilson's sacks that he takes are deep sacks, right? He keeps them going back and going back and going back. Now I think he's going to do that less. He's an older quarterback. You see that with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Russell Wilson's wheels are more, he's got more tread on the tires than Rodgers. He's going to throw the ball away. He's going to kind of drift out of bounds, make sure it's not a penalty, and he's just going to throw it away. But they'll have to get to him. It's only his second game. Maybe there's something to take advantage of there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Giants pass rush needs to treat Russell Wilson like they did Geno Smith, man. Just have a party at the quarterback. Everyone's invited. RSVP plus 50 if you want. Like, it has to be that game where you have to make an older quarterback like Russell Wilson look old. All the hype was last week against the Jets, but this week you have to get after Russell Wilson. And you mentioned Brian Burns, the same thing. He told me going into the Seahawks game, he said you got to earn the right to rush in terms of pass rush. That means you got to stop the run game. For the Steelers, Najee Harris gained 208 of his 478 total rushing yards this season in weeks 6 and 7, including 80-plus rushing yards over expected. That's second most than any running back during that span. Is stopping the run the key to beating the Steelers?
Well, if they don't stop the run, they're not going to be close. They will not be close in this game if they don't stop the run. If they stop the run, I'm still not going to guarantee they're going to win. It also depends on what is the definition of stop the run, right? They were the first 7 carries for Saquon Barkley last week went for 17 yards. They were stopping the run. And then the next one went for 55. That's not stopping the run. Najee Harris will, as you said, yards over expectation. If you don't tackle him, he will keep going. He likes going forward. That's what he does. And the Giants have to be better there. That's all there is to it. Dexter Lawrence is a great player. I don't think the interior line as a whole are great run stoppers, though. You know what I mean? Azeez Ojulari is not a great run stopper. So it's an issue. And it needs to be addressed because I don't think the Steelers want to throw it 35 times. I really don't. I think they will if they have to. So I don't think the guys on the outside for the Steelers, as far as the pass game, unbelievably scare you. They're certainly competent guys, but there's not a Justin Jefferson there. There's not a CeeDee Lamb there. You need to do a great job against the run, and the Giants have been spotty in that. And last week they just totally became a sieve. Once they had over 250 yards rushing against them. That's inexcusable.
Yeah, it's imperative that they stop the run. We heard Chris talk about how Russ has thrived in that small sample size in the play action, and that's what Arthur Smith wants to do. He wants to run the ball, take deep shots with the George Pickens and Russell Wilson. If we see the moon ball, Paul, that means it's night-night, because that means that the play action is working and Russ is comfortable and he's cooking, as he used to say. Finish this thing off for us, Paul. Your final thought before you head out to Pittsburgh. Try some Permenti Brothers while you're out there, too, man. I love it.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big fan of that. No, I'm not a big fan of that. No. You know what? There's nothing like New York deli, right? We don't need to go anywhere else for that. The best sandwiches are in New York. And if you're in New Jersey, you can probably say the best sandwiches are there, too. Yep. I don't need to go somewhere else for sandwiches. Look, the Giants and Steelers have kind of been linked, even though they don't play a lot. A lot of these players have never played in Pittsburgh. The guys have been around. The Giants don't play in Pittsburgh very often. But the Giants, the Steelers, they're very traditional teams. And look, they both drafted a quarterback in 2004. The Giants didn't draft Eli Manning. They traded for him. So the Big Ben era and the Eli Manning era were kind of coincided, right? And both teams have had trouble after their franchise quarterbacks retired of replacing them and winning. The Steelers have had less trouble, and they've won more games, but they've gone through a cycle of quarterbacks. Then they have Justin Fields. Now they have Russell Wilson. Great. The Giants have Daniel Jones, and they may perhaps move on from him after this year. So these are two proud franchises. The Steelers have done a better job of coming off the Big Ben era than the Giants have coming off the Eli Manning era. It's held them back. Look, this will be a enormous victory for the Giants, but I will believe it when I see it. I picked them to win last week on a hunch. I will not pick them to win this week, and that's not a hunch. That's just cold, hard facts. Until they score some points, it's hard to pick them. Maybe the road helps them. Maybe it does, but they're not going to just go out there and play better because it's the road, because it's a hell of a road place to play.
You mentioned Big Ben. This is the first time the Giants are facing a Steelers quarterback outside or other than Ben Roethlisberger since 2000. So these teams, the franchises, the heads of the franchises know each other, but the teams, they haven't been able to see each other and match up. But it's going to go down on Monday. So thank you guys for watching the Blue Rush Preview Show. Tuesday, we're going to have our post-game live stream, so be sure to check that out. For Paul Schwartz, I'm Brendan London. Get ready for some Monday night football action. We got Giants Steelers out in the Steel City. See everybody on Tuesday.